The invasion at the border is not for cheap labor. It's the UN soldiers that are coming in from both ends of the country, not just the southern border. No, it's for cheap labor. It's not just, there's not just one mission to the open borders. The reason that I say this is because I know that American Nurses Association through Global Nurses United, which goes to the UN at the International Nurse Council, it's all tied to Agenda 2030. So why would they, and they in 2020 supported open borders. That's when I became interested in why would they support that. It's an irresponsible position for a nursing organization, a professional organization no less, to take. Well, because it's the reason why things don't get better in nursing. I mean, the unions just throw nurses a bone every once in a while. That's about it. Yeah, in California they get ratios. Believe me, they're not going to stick very long. They're going to bring in cheap labor. The unions ultimately have signed on to Agenda 2030. Agenda 2030 isn't just about overthrowing America. It is, but part of that is not letting Americans get jobs. And the corporate world, we all know, has signed on to that because through the World Economic Forum, through they're all owned. It's the reason when the hospitals monopolized. So all the unions are tied to American Nurses Association. And American Nurses Association ties to Global Nurses United. And Global Nurses United ties to the International Nurse Council in the UN. They've been there forever. So that's the reason why they continually say there's a nurse shortage. There's not. There's plenty of nurses. They just don't want to pay them. And so I'm not saying the union members in nursing know about it. They don't. They're going to believe whatever their organization says. Because again, all it takes is throwing the union members a bone every once in a while. Here, we'll give you this. But ultimately, the heads of these organizations, whether it's the union, American Nurses Association, Global Nurses United, they are all tied to Agenda 2030. They've been on board with it for years, which again is why the situation with nurses has gotten worse, not better. They've been doing it for years. I've done videos about this, about American or International Nurse Council's plan to they're fully on board. They've already thrown American nurses to the wolves. Yeah. They just say, oh, they got burnt out and they all left. Well, they helped push everybody out. They knew not to do with the things they did in 2020. They knew, but with corporate and them, we know that they all went along with this virus because it was to help force us into the UN plan. So they've lied. But then you have to sit back and say, well, why would they lie? Well, because they're actually helping the hospital corporate. Likely, it's as simple as the people at the top of those organizations get a kickback. That's what my guess would be. But American Medical Association is tied to it too. Part of destroying America is Americans being the ones that are jobless and homeless, and this whole country being a third world country. You don't want to raise up actual American workers. So it's absolutely about bringing in cheap labor. The way the corporate world of nursing has used the American Nurses Association, which is part of the reason too, American Nurses Association blocks me on Twitter, is the way that they use them is to push this, oh, there's a nurse shortage, so we have to now get on board with the migration of nurses. We don't know if those nurses are being trafficked. This has been something that I've come across looking into all this, that some of these nurses over the years, especially Filipinos, some of them were likely tricked into coming here, coerced. That's trafficking. Yeah. So they use some non-governmental organization to coerce these nurses, like in the Philippines and other places. Oh, come to America, you can have all your dreams, all your dreams come true, all this. And then they get them here and they tie them to a contract, and they can't do anything because they're an illegal immigrant. But now they can give them cheap pay, no insurance, and it works for the heads of all the hospitals. That the nursing homes have already done this. Actually, the nursing homes are pushing nurses out as it is. They, in some states, have nurses' aides that are giving meds. And now the nursing, what our own profession of nursing, my own profession is doing, is talking about bringing in medication aides. Yes, these will be the people that will pass the medicine to help the nurses. This is just a slow way to push more nurses out. They don't want to pay nurses. They don't. That's why corporate, the hospital systems all monopolize. They don't give a shit how they treat nurses. I mean, I currently work in a place, they could care less what happens to you. They would make any excuse for any injury. I mean, I had just had an injury. It was not anything that I needed to be seen for, but I had reported the place to OSHA. And then I ended up not even responding back to OSHA. I just told them how unsafe the place was and what happened and how there's not enough staff. And then I'm like, why am I even doing this? All these agencies are captured. It's a waste of time. So when they called me, I didn't even respond because I thought, what a waste of time. So, it's unfortunate because most of the nurses in my profession just believe whatever their professional organizations tell them. But no, they've been on board with this same sick agenda that the hospital systems have been on board with, that the corporate world is on board with, that they're all at the World Economic Forum. They absolutely want cheap labor. They want to do the same thing nursing homes have been doing for years, which is, tricking nurses into coming here on these visas. But then they get here and then they're forced to all travel together. They're forced to go to the same job together, and they're forced to work at the same nursing home for the most god-awful pay, and they can't get out of it because they're an illegal immigrant, so they have to finish their contract. Who does it all benefit? It benefits the nursing home. How is it that, the nursing credentialing board should know about those nurses. Why don't they? They have to have some contact with them because they're credentialed. So why don't they know that stuff was going on 13 years ago and long before that? So it's all part of the same illness. It's all part of the same sick disease, which is trafficking of human beings. Agenda 2030 and trafficking, it's all part of the same thing because it's the same dark people. They just don't care about human life, which is why I've pushed so much, especially in the past 3 days, that we need to start calling out what wicked is. This isn't just about the UN coming across the border. No, they don't even need to do that. If they wanted to do that, the blue helmets would come right in. They're here anyway. The UN is in New York. No, I'm not saying some of those people may not, they're working for them for sure. But no, they're doing this in a more, they don't want to get troops and because that will alert the American people. They're doing all of this very covertly. This is why they, for the past several years, have been slowly pushing nurses out. And then you get all your professional nurse organizations that nurses think have their backs and they really don't. And they push this, we need to do migration of nursing. But they had it planned over a decade ago with the International Nurse Council at the UN that they would push and promote nurse migration, and that is now what they're doing. And the only reason they would do that is to help corporate so that Americans are not given jobs, but illegal aliens are, and who knows if those people are being trafficked. Some of them likely are. And it's all, in the end, to destroy America. And part of destroying America is bringing in cheap labor and turning everything into a sweatshop.